will slowly slide into our program tonight, which is Breaking Barriers, Women in Motorcycling. And thank you for being here. This event is being held in conjunction with our exhibit Kickstands Up, 125 Years of Motorcycling in the Pacific Northwest, which was produced in partnership with the Pacific Northwest Museum of Motorcycles. And the exhibit will be running until April 26th, although I think I saw a lot of you up there beforehand. But if you want to come back, it will be there. Tonight, we're going to be celebrating the rich and varied history of motorcycling with Northwest women who have broken boundaries and left storied legacies in their tracks. There's a few housekeeping notes before we start. As I mentioned, there is a bar in the back there. We also have our store open tonight. If you would like to stop by on your way out, we have all sorts of motorcycle-related items, including works by motorcycle artists Siege and Tim Fowler. Most importantly, if you need the restrooms, they are past that red high-heel motorcycle down the hallway on the left. And feel free at all times if you want to get up and move around if you need to, and there's room to stand in the back. And a huge thank you to the Hugh and Jane Ferguson Foundation for sponsoring January's programming here at Mohi. As we ground in space tonight, it's important to recognize the indigenous people of this place, the Duwamish, Suquamish, Muckleshoot, and all Coast Salish people. Historically, Native communities were forcibly removed from this city, but today we honor their continued endurance and stewardship of this place with deep respect and gratitude for that unbroken stewardship. Now it is my honor to introduce our fabulous speakers for tonight, who you came to hear. So our moderator here on the left is Tammy Sessions. Yes, give a little wave and a clap. Tammy is the person in the amazing pink jacket that you've been staring at. She was born in 1955 in Bellevue and raced her first desert cross country on a 120cc Suzuki in 1968 at Mattawa. That began a lifelong love for motorcycling and racing, including motocross, short track, flat track, and desert racing on a fleet of now vintage Pentos, Osso, Montesa Bultaco, and Triumphs. Tammy is still an active motorcyclist, and her devotion to two wheels stretches across decades of change. Next, we have Debbi Selden Pugh.
Thank you.
Who started racing motorcycles against men on her 13th birthday. In 1967, while working at her parents' motorcycle dealership, Debbi started petitioning the American Motorcycle Association to let her race professionally. Despite petitions from professional motorcycle racers, the AMA rejected her application due to her sex. Debbi started litigation and took her case all the way to the Supreme Court. She won and was formally presented her license in 1972. Yes, round of applause. Next, we have Inna Thorn. Round of applause.
Should we switch seats?
I'm so sorry. They switched places on me. Inna's at the end. For over a decade, Inna Thorn has led the Backcountry Discovery Routes nonprofit as executive director and vice president of the board. Based in Seattle, she has devoted her career to mission-driven work and inspiring adventure. A lifelong explorer, Inna once rode from Seattle to Tierra del Fuego on a 6-month motorcycle journey, an experience that fuels her passion for helping others discover the world on two wheels. And last but not least, we have Olivia Pugh, who grew up in Tacoma and learned to ride motorcycles at age 4 and started racing hare scrambles at age 13. In 2024, Olivia qualified for the International ISDE 6-day enduro race in Spain, the most prestigious and most difficult enduro race in the world. She raced for Team USA and won the gold medal on the women's club team. And I'll now turn it over to Tammy to get this discussion going.
Thank you all for coming out. We're going to have a good time. So our curator, Jack Mackey, he was not able to make it tonight, so it's going to be me. And I want to start with Debbi, because if it wasn't for Debbi, I never would have been able to do that. And that was very important to me. So Debbi, let's start. How did your parents owned a motorcycle store, and what made you go to your mom and say, I want to become a professional racer?
It was kind of a long, drawn-out scenario in a sense. I started going to the motorcycle races in like 5th grade, at the end of 4th grade, and I had a little Suzuki 50 at that point in time. And I watched everybody race, and I thought, you know, I'd like to do that. And so I was able to enter a powder puff, which is all women, and I really liked it. I won. So in order to continue racing and race more frequently, I started racing with the men. And sometimes I was accepted and sometimes I wasn't. But yeah, it just gradually came on, and my expectations continued to grow.
Thank you. And Olivia, you have the coolest adventures. Can you imagine? She went to California to qualify, to see if she could qualify, the ISDE 6-day enduro. It is the hardest enduro in the entire world, and it's also the most prestigious. And what she went through, it's amazing. Could you tell us a little bit about like, how did you have to prep to be able to change a rear tire in less than 3 minutes?
Yeah, that was a little bit of a learning curve. So you have about, well, to start the day, you're basically on the dirt bike for 8 hours for 5 days, and then you have a motocross track race on the last day. So yeah, so I'd start my day around 6 a.m. I'd get up, and then we'd go to where our bikes were impounded and held overnight to make sure that nobody tampered with them. Then we'd get them out of impound, we'd roll them up, and then we'd take off. And so it's basically like a giant trail ride until you get to a certain point, like a checkpoint, and then you have to ride as fast as you can for about 5 miles 6 times. So you also don't know where the checkpoints are necessarily, so you have to pace yourself. And then you have about 10 to 15 minutes at each checkpoint to like eat some food and power up for racing in between. And then at the very end of the day, after you've ridden for 8 hours, you have 15 minutes at the end of the day to work on anything that's broken, change your tires, all of that. So I was able to change a front and a rear tire, and then do brake pads and things like that at the very end of the day. And then whatever wasn't accomplished, we were able to complete the next day with our 10-minute allotted time. But if we had any big problems, it was kind of game over, because we're the only ones that are allowed to work on our bikes. So I was the only one working on my bike, changing tires. The only thing that people could help with was changing oil, just because it took so long to drain. So I was lucky in that aspect. But yeah, it was a lot different than anything I'd ever competed here, but it was a really, really cool experience for sure.
Thank you. Inna, how did you get started on a motorcycle?
Yeah, I started with the 250cc scooter. That was sort of a practical start because I needed transportation to get around town. So I did that for about 5 years, and then I met my future husband, and he taught me, well, he had a dream of riding a motorcycle from Seattle to Ushuaia, and it became a common goal. We planned our trip for about 6 months, ended up subletting our apartment. I took an MSF course over the weekend, got my motorcycle endorsement license, and basically we did a test trip to Laguna Seca with fully loaded bikes. We purchased 2 KLR Kawasaki motorcycles, and then we just went. In preparation, he worked on bikes. I was researching the trip. So that was an amazing experience. We rode for 200 days, visited 13 countries, and I think it was 17,000 miles. We went to Seattle all the way down to Ushuaia, and then up to Buenos Aires, and then shipped the bikes to Texas and rode back home. And then after I came back, I wanted to keep working in the motorcycle, or start working in the motorcycle industry. Ended up getting a job at TourTech USA, who then eventually, that job led me to be the manager for backcountry discovery routes. At that time, BDR was just starting. I joined when we were now a third year. And the rest is history. I've been with the BDR for 13 years, and basically helped grow the organization from, a tiny passion project of a few volunteers to now a national nonprofit with 23 routes, and that keeps inspiring thousands of people to go out and explore the backcountry of the United States.
I rode the Washington Backroads Discovery last summer, 600 miles, but what they had to go through just to get this route, we had it on our GPS, and of course you had sections that were extremely hard. Baby Head Hill.
Baby Head Hill, yes.
She's ridden it also. I can't imagine all that work. And how many states are these routes in?
Yeah, so right now we have 23 routes that comprise of 14 main BDRs that are cross-state routes, and then a new concept of BDR X routes, which are shorter loop rides. So there's, I guess, 6 of those. So 23, or no, more. So forget my math, but 23 routes right now, and we're releasing a new route, Montana, in 4 weeks here. So
nice.
Yeah, it's a passion project for a lot of people.
Her bike is the furthest one away up there, where it's you can see she has to carry everything with her. They don't have a chase truck. And I believe that's your outfit that you wear, the mannequin?
That's a sample outfit from TourTech for an adventure rider. But yeah, the bike there is the Zero DSRX. It's an electric adventure bike that we had in the Northern California film. So yeah, it's exciting.
I forgot, it's electric.
Yes.
Okay. And so, is it really quiet?
It's very quiet. So all you can hear is just the leaves on the ground.
Oh, wow,
Yeah,
okay.
It's very fun.
So, Debbi, I mean, this lady is amazing. I've known her a long time. And the part about the American Motorcycle Association, they had rules. Women, you are not allowed to step into the pits. Even if you are a trained mechanic and you're mechanicking for national number 75, you had to do your work outside of the gate in the pits. And do you think that you get to race? Oh, heck no. Women were not allowed on the track. And I mean, it's hard to even think that this is what she went through. The American Motorcycle Association, their thought, as I've read so much about this, was, she's only 16 years old. She'll forget about it because you have to be 18 to get a professional license. And go away, little girl. Well, she didn't go away. She's a bulldog. And there are so many newspaper articles all over the United States about what Debbi went through. And tell us just a little bit more about that. It's so interesting.
Well, it started, I didn't think it was any big deal. I was just going out and racing with the guys, and it was no big deal. But then I went down to San Diego, and I practiced, and I qualified, and I made the trophy dash, and I'm pushing my bike up to ride the trophy dash, and the officials are like, this isn't the powder puff. I said, I know. I'm Debbi Selden. I qualified second. I'm supposed to ride the trophy dash. No. We'll let you ride the powder puff. And so here, after driving all the way down there and competing, I won, but I wanted to race against the best because it was more fun. And then I also had a ride. Cal Carruthers was, at that point in time, a famous road racer, and he had watched me ride at Graham Speedway and at Castle Rock. And he said, I think you'd make a really good road racer. Would you like to learn to do that? And I said, yeah. He says, okay, I'm teaching this other guy right now, Kenny Roberts, but I've got time for you also. And I said, okay. He says, I'll figure out a 125 twin, and you can ride the 125 twin class at Daytona this coming year. Okay, great. And son of a gun, if Roxy Rockwood, I thought, was a really good close family friend, and he was on the board of directors at Daytona. And at the next meeting of the board of directors, all of a sudden there was a new rule that said no women riders at Daytona. So I didn't get to ride Daytona or learn to road race. So I kind of had it installed, okay, this is not going to be easy. So I started writing letters, I started circulating petitions. So I had every single national number signature stating that I had the skills, I had the qualifications, I should be allowed to race professionally. And AMA said, we'll probably bring it up at a board meeting. Well, they didn't. So when I turned 18, after 2 years of trying to prime them and get them with sugar instead of vinegar, I figured out I had to use vinegar. I took the physical, I sent in the application, they sent it back, no, it won't work, you're a woman. And then I went to the attorney, and it took a number of years. The very first, it took us a while to get to court to begin with, and we won, and it was so ridiculous. The first question out of the attorney's mouth for the AMA asked me, how much does your motorcycle weigh? I said, about 250 pounds. Well, how are you going to lift that? And I said, I don't have to. I'm racing it. I'm riding it. He had no concept or understanding that because of the size I was, I would have an advantage over other people because I was able to get more horsepower to the ground because of less weight. But, yeah. And so I had aged out of an awful lot of competitions, so I couldn't ride them anymore. And it took a number of years to finally get so that we were supposed to be going to the Supreme Court, and the AMA messed up. They gave this gal named Marty a professional motocross license, and she was from New York. She shows up, she rides, they pull her license, and so she filed suit within I don't know how much time, and all of a sudden the AMA said, yeah, Now we've got 2 court cases. We've got one going to the Supreme Court. Here you go. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Yeah. Olivia, so preparing for the most difficult enduro in the world, and it's in Spain, and you have to get your motorcycle there. So what kind of preparation did you go through, and I mean, who did you ask for instructions? I mean, how did you know what to do?
Yeah, it was a little bit of an eye-opener for sure. For those of you that don't know, this is my grandma. So, so obviously we've been riding since I was really young, but it's crazy now to think about if she didn't go what she had gone through, I wouldn't be here today either. So that's kind of a cool like loop around. But yeah, they didn't even know if they were going to have a women's club team. They have women's trophy team. They have one. But every other team is a men's team. So mine, the year that I went to Spain was the first year that they ever had a women's club team, and that was in 2024. So it's kind of crazy that it took even that long just to have another women's club team, but now it's going strong, and they had it again this year. So that's really cool. But yeah, it was definitely an eye-opener. We didn't start racing until I was around 13 years old, and a lot of kids that are really involved or people that are really involved with racing start when they're really young. So kind of being dropped into the racing world was a little bit different because I just grew up trail riding with my mom, dad, brother, and my grandparents. So that's kind of what we did on the weekends. But yeah, we started racing, and then I really hated losing, so I really tried hard. I liked winning, but I just really hated losing. So we started racing our local series, our off-road series, and then it kind of just transpired into something that I really latched onto and really loved and enjoyed. And we had a family friend, Maria Forsberg, who kind of introduced me to the whole 6 days scene because I had never really heard of it. And so she was just kind of asking me questions. She had been before on the trophy team, and she was asking me questions like if I'd ever want to go, and I was like, I have no idea. It sounds like a lot of work. But anyway, so I went to the California qualifier with a friend just to see what it would be like because I was student teaching at the time. I'm a kindergarten teacher, so I was student teaching at the time, and I was not prepared at all and hadn't been preparing for it, so I wanted to go just to like get my feet wet and see if it's something that I wanted to do. And then I ended up qualifying, so that was a bit of a shock. Exciting shock, but a bit of a shock. And so just kind of like trying to figure out everything. We had to have our bikes crated, taken apart and crated and shipped across the country 3 months before I left. So that was a little bit scary, like sending your entire bike and all your gear and all your parts and like hoping that you see it in 3 months. And then on another note, I had never been out of the country, so that was something new also. So yeah, it was a lot of preparation, and we had some good family friends that had been before. And so that was super helpful to have them like give their input and walk us through some stuff because it was all just so brand new for me and my family. So we fundraised with t-shirt sales and bake sales and ice cream sales, anything you can really think of at our local races and things. And then we ended up fundraising money, and I was able to go just because it is so expensive, and we all know teachers don't make a ton of money, you know. So anyway, but it was a really, really cool experience and something I'll never forget. But it's just crazy to think that that opportunity may have not been there if my grandma hadn't fought the way that she did when she did. So yeah, it was a really, really great experience.
Oh, that's great. We're very proud of you. I just have a couple more questions, and then we're going to let you guys ask questions. But Inna, so could you tell us what impact the Backroads Discovery Routes has had on backcountry riding? And anything that you feel that what are we going to do to keep this going and keep motorcycle riding off-road going?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like backcountry discovery routes is a national treasure, you know, just like the national parks that we have. The public the access to public lands is something very special in our country. Nowhere in the world do people have access to ride their motorcycles on such huge, pieces of public land. So it's very unique to us, and we should be all proud of it, but also at the same time, making sure that we're protecting our rights to ride on public lands. And what BDR is doing is we're charting these routes on existing public roads, but once the route is created, it's very hard to close the road because now the public is using it for recreation. And so now we have all these routes across the country that will live in perpetuity for generations and generations to enjoy. So that's one aspect, is just preserving our rights to ride on public lands. Secondly, what I've been seeing lately is now we have generations of family members riding together, which is so special. Sometimes I would get an email from a father who's riding with his son and his father. So 3 generations enjoying riding on public land. So I think that's very special too, is just, as we all spend so much time in front of computers and just working day in and day out, getting out and enjoying the backcountry with your family or with your friends is just such a special experience, Let's see, what else? In terms of the future of our industry, I think, making sure that we're educating people who are coming into the sport on how to be good stewards of the land, how to responsibly recreate on public lands. And we've been talking that, you see people on dirt bikes on single track. Sometimes they don't know what they're doing, or they're trespassing. They don't really have the knowledge of how to recreate responsibly, and so making sure that people are being educated as they come into the sport, will serve us all well. And from our standpoint, from Backcountry Discovery Routes, we're just creating more routes. We currently, like I said, have 23 routes. Our goal is to double the number of routes in the next 5 years, so creating more opportunities for people to ride, and educating them, inspiring them through films and events and attending rallies, so that it's all part of the main ecosystem. And also helping small businesses prosper. In the last 20 years, as BDR was growing, we've had so many small mom and pop businesses open up and start creating luggage or aftermarket parts. The last year has been really hard, because of tariffs and economic instability. So that's another aspect that we should be all thinking about. So motorcycle sales are down, which at some point they might be up, but it's just BDR is doing our part to make sure that the ecosystem is healthy, that the people keep being inspired and have opportunities to enjoy public lands.
Thank you. We'll end with you, Debbi. So what do you think about the future of flat track, motocross?
I don't know, it's scary in a way because of the fact I used to be able to race on Wednesday night, Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday. And now there are fewer tracks and fewer places to ride. I think in general, we need to help dealerships promote families and promote competition and just the joy of riding. I wish I had all the answers. I wish I knew someone to go to get the funds to be able to buy property. But even places like Strataline, I don't want to be doom and gloom. I want to figure out how to improve, how to change it, how to turn it around. But I think that by letting people know that this really is a family sport, and I would much rather have my kids competing on motorcycles than competing online on a game on the computer.
Oh, that's for sure. Thank you. So we're going to put a couple mics out there, and you guys are welcome to ask any questions. Since this is all about women breaking barriers, I just have one quick thing. Because of Debbie, I got my professional flat track license at 18. I don't know if I was naive, but my first circuit was in the United States, and we mostly raced in South Dakota, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, in that Midwest area. And there was no other women in that area on that circuit. It was called the Camel Pro Series, had a camel with a cigarette out of its mouth. But, and I'm traveling with 3 other national number riders, and I was fortunate enough, my father made sure that I had my own mechanic. I had someone there watching me and helping me. But when I got to those tracks, and these were at the state fairgrounds, and we were racing on the horse tracks, they were like, "What are you doing?" And I had the pink leathers, and that was my mom's idea. But I was not accepted at all, and I really didn't know what to think about it until the second year I did it. And now I'm a much better racer. I know what I'm up against. And then I could hear the fathers going, "I can't believe it, you let a girl beat you." But it was rough the first year, but then after that, it got a lot better. And now we have women national numbers racing. They're racing Supercross. There's a lot of women, and they're very good, and they're winning nationals. They're not just, coming in 10th place. They're winning. Okay, I'd like to turn it over to you guys.
So if you have a question, please raise your hand and we will come to you with microphones. Please wait for the microphone so it can go on the recording, which will be on YouTube.
I have a question for Olivia. Just what was your physical preparation like for that?
So I had a nutritionist, and then I also had a personal trainer trying to dial in my nutrition and the personal training, just because I didn't know what the food and everything was going to look like in a different country as well, because I'd never been out of the country. So I was pretty much working out 4 to 5 times a week, and training in that sense, and then riding as much as I could on the weekends, because I was working full time, so it was a little bit trickier. But it was definitely a learning curve for sure, because you didn't have as many rest days. So I was going into riding and I was already sore from working out. But it definitely paid off, like being there. I definitely felt that I was less tired and things like that. But mainly it was just my physical nutrition and my mental health also. Like I worked a lot on my mental health, trying to comprehend that I would be on a dirt bike for 8 hours and not really talking, and like you're just kind of there to yourself. So that also was a little bit, I had to prepare for that a little bit. And so, yeah, but it all worked out really great, and I was able to go into it with a really healthy mindset, which I was happy about, just because that was kind of my biggest struggle from the beginning, was the mental side of it for sure.
I only had the football coach helping me. Who helped you?
That was my dad.
Oh, yeah.
When I told him, I go, "Dad, you should see me turn left. I am really good at turning left." He goes, "Oh, is that right? From now on, you will only turn right." And so this picture, I'm turning right. Because flat track, you're going in a circle. But when you're on a track that has a dog leg, you have to know how to turn right. But yeah, my father, he was a little rough on us girls, and it paid off.
But he was a fitness trainer also.
Well, yeah, my father owned health clubs, and yes, we worked out all the time.
I have a question for Ms. Selden.
For who?
You. I'd like to take you back to 1970, and I'd like to ask you how you felt when you found out that the Supreme Court was going to hear your case.
How I felt when I found out.
When the Supreme Court was going to hear your case.
I was ecstatic just because of the fact that I felt like, okay, yes, this is the top. We're going to win. There's no reason not to win. And I was just, let's go, let's get this done. I'll work hard. I will pay the money to the attorney, because that's where the majority of my income, after I paid my rent and my electricity and everything else, it went to the attorney. So, I was like, come on, hurry up, I'm getting tired of waiting.
Did you have any idea for the scale or scope of the impact of the decision?
No, I just felt like I'm just a girl that wants to race motorcycles, and they won't let me race professionally because my plumbing is wrong. And that's not really, that's not really right. I feel kind of bad. It warms my heart, and it makes me feel so good that I've been able to help other people at this point in time. If anything that I have done has made any difference in their lives, has broken any barriers for them, that's wonderful. But that's not what I set out to do. All I set out to do was I just wanted to race motorcycles professionally. I had a plan. I was going to race motorcycles professionally, and I was going to make money, and I was going to ride for Yamaha. And when things started where I wasn't winning all the time, because I really like to win, I wanted to go into marketing and advertising for Yamaha, and I figured that was going to be my path to glory. I didn't plan on falling in love and marrying this wonderful man that's back there that's been married to me for 53 years. And he has a lot of patience.
I really don't think I need a microphone.
Could you please wait and use the microphone? Please.
You mentioned the public roads and
We,
whatnot. I think
we need it so that you will be on the recording, sir.
maybe, you mentioned, public lands and keeping them open and things like that. But could you maybe touch on two things in particular? One, the perception of motorcyclists in the backcountry compared to what it used to be. And two, the economic impact of these people coming through, through small towns.
Yeah, one of the missions of the BDR is the economic impact. Our routes go through some of the most rural parts of the state. So these are small towns that are tiny. They might have a population of 17, and maybe there's some old gas station, maybe an inn and a restaurant. And so BDR is sending thousands of riders all of a sudden into their community, spending money on gas and food and lodging. And so what we found, in fact, we've done an economic study a few years ago that found that $60 million was spent by BDR riders on I think we had maybe 16 routes at the time. So the impact is great, and these are the communities that might have lost mining industry or forestry. The schools are closing, and so this is a new form. This form of motorcycle recreation is becoming a way for these communities to revive themselves and to make money. So that's definitely a big impact that the BDR has on the livelihoods of people in rural communities. And then the other part of your question, perception of riders in the backcountry, it differs. Some communities are very welcoming, and they understand that, and sometimes depend on this form of recreation and tourists or motorcycle riders spending money. There's always people who may not understand, or they have a perception that, we're the hooligans, we're there to rip on their private properties and so forth. So for us, it's always about education and making sure that new riders that are coming into the sport are, ride respectfully, know the tenets of riding properly and respecting local communities and, making sure that they tread lightly when they camp and so forth. So, it's a continuous thing for us. We do it through our films and programs that we have. Anytime we make presentations, it's a big part of, what we try to highlight is making sure that we're all ambassadors of the sport, and we wave to people when we pass them by, we slow down, and all these things, it's important in order for us to continue to recreate on public lands.
This is to Inna as well. What was your favorite country in I'm taking notes right now. What was your favorite country in South America that you loved? And then which ones were dodgy and questionable to go travel in? Again, taking notes here.
Favorite countries, I would say Peru, Chile, and Argentina, maybe the Patagonia side. However, Ecuador was amazing, Colombia was incredible, so they all, have such unique character. And I always encourage people who want to travel to Europe, go to South America, because it's such a unique, there's still such unique and culture there, and they also have incredible public lands, and the views are amazing. So, really, any country in South America was incredible. Central America, however, was tough. Border crossings took forever. We were stopped by police and asked to pay bribes and all that. Honduras was probably the toughest one. So we actually, our routes development director is working on a BDR route in Patagonia right now. I don't know when we'll get there. It's probably going to be maybe 10 years, but we are expanding into Canada, and then international is next. So this sort of formula for routes is kind of endless, and when we run out of places to ride in the US, then we have plans to expand internationally.
I just wanted to address, there's one thing that has not been covered here, and that is street riding and touring. Yes, you're doing BDR, but it's mostly back roads and in the dirt. I have about 500,000 miles on motorcycles all over the United States and Europe, and was also involved in a tour across country from Brooklyn to San Francisco with women. All women riders, they could come and go and collect with us and continue, and when we got to the Golden Gate Bridge, we had 250 women. Wow. Excuse me. It was so exciting to see all those women coming down the hills into San Francisco. And I just wanted to say that there is another life out there on two wheels. Touring is wonderful on two wheels. You can't get out of a parking place or a gas station without somebody starting up a conversation with you. Oh, are you all by yourself? Because I tour a lot alone. And, how far have you come? And I just did 8,000 miles last year on one tour in June. And I'd love to see more women involved in street riding also, not just dirt riding.
That's usually the path, you start on dirt, and in fact, you start on pavement and then you kind of wonder where the dirt road leads. But our trip to South America, it was probably 85% pavement. So you can definitely see the world from the pavement vantage point. I do want to mention I'm also part of the She ADV organization, which is a nonprofit led by women. And our mission is to encourage, to provide training and resources for women who are interested in getting into adventure riding. And we host monthly Zoom calls where we invite international travelers, or we have training topics, and so those have been very successful. If women out here, if you're not part of the She ADV organization, I encourage you to look us up and join our monthly Zoom calls. Yeah, and the funny thing is, we've received, or sometimes receive comments like, well, shouldn't there be then a He ADV organization? You know, why do you try to separate yourself like that? And maybe what they don't realize is women learn differently. We maybe need different support systems. And when women see, and maybe they're riding on the back of their partner's bike, and they don't have the confidence to get their own bike. But when they see women riding, when there's a supportive community and role models, like that's important for women. And so that's why there's She ADV and maybe no He ADV.
Hi, I'd like to ask a question about injuries and what's your advice to young women getting into the sport, fear of injury, that'll keep people out, and what injuries have you guys sustained and how you overcome them?
I've been pretty lucky. I've separated my shoulder, injuries, right? Sorry. Yeah. I've separated my shoulder and broken like fingers and toes racing, but for the most part, I think the foundational skills, as long as those are there, not that it's a safe sport by any means, but the foundational skills definitely help. And my dad, I was lucky enough, my dad and my mom spent a lot of time building foundational skills and riding a million circles in a field and telling me to scoot forward or put your elbows up and things like that. And so I was really, really fortunate in that sense. But I do know a lot of people that didn't have that, and they sustain, it seems like, more injuries just because they don't have those foundational skills. So just kind of building up confidence, I feel like, and building those foundational skills, and not necessarily just going as fast as you possibly can, but really focusing on keeping your balance and maybe riding things that are a little bit more difficult, but actually trying to maintain your skills rather than just going as fast as you can, I guess, is what I've found. And I will be the first to say I've been incredibly lucky. Like I said earlier, most people have broken some serious bones, and I've been really lucky. I've had one concussion, which isn't ideal, but my concussion, and then mainly just my separated shoulder. But I've also been riding on the front of a bike since I was 6 months old, so it's a little bit since then. I feel like it's a pretty good percentage for me, but I know that's not the same case for you, so it's a little bit different for everybody. But I think finding a good community, like Inna was saying, when I started riding, there was no girls. Really, I rode with my mom and my brother and my dad, and now the local series that I race, Norks, and it's an off-road series, there was over 150 women signed up, and they have a whole course dedicated just to women riders. So it's so cool to see now all these women and girls that are racing, because that wasn't the case when I was younger, and that was only 5 or 6 years ago when I was racing. So we've come a long way, I feel like, just from in the last 5 to 6 years of girls wanting to ride and women wanting to learn how to ride and showing up and racing, and even just riding in general. There's a whole trail group and everything now, Northwest Woods women, there's 200 and that are all in a group chat together, and so we all try to get together and ride and just meet other women. So it's really empowering in that sense that a lot of women get to come together and ride together, and I think that also helps build confidence. But
also, when Debbie and I started racing, we didn't have all that protective gear. you just couldn't go to some motorcycle store and buy it. I know Debbie and myself, we made our own chest protectors, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I almost think my football chest protectors. Yeah, I broke my collarbone 3 times when I was 16, 17, and 18 at Graham, Castle Rock race, and then practicing. I broke my arm twice. I broke my knee on a poker run, which required just like 4 surgeries, and they told me I would not walk again without a crutch or a cane, but I'm kind of ornery. And so I did, and I do. But yeah, I had football shoulder pads because I don't have very big shoulders. And there weren't knee pads were unheard of. I mean, I was lucky I got my first Bill helmet full face because I worked in the motorcycle shop, and our Bill helmet representative came around, and I had made a sign, and it said, if you have a $10 head, wear a $10 helmet. And they really liked that. And the guy said, we want to buy that from you. We want to use that. And I said, okay. He said, you're coming to LA, right? Because K&N used to fly me down, and I'd race at Paris and a few other places, but this was before that. And I said, yeah. And he goes, okay, we've got this new thing coming. It's a full face helmet. I think you'll really, really like it. You know, you've got braces. You want to protect those things, and braces on my teeth. And so I said, okay, so I was one of the very first owners, and they told me I could have Bill helmets for the rest of my life.
Yeah, nice. Wow.
By coming up with that slogan. Which, I mean, I only took advantage of the first time because I felt like, don't push a good thing. But anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in our industry, we do have good gear now, thankfully. But also, we always recommend making sure that you take training before you go out on the BDR. And I always say, like, take training every year, maybe from different trainers, because you learn different things. And then also being in good shape, maybe learning how to fall properly, and but then having strong bones. I broke an arm, and that was my only injury so far from the BDRs, but healed pretty fast because I'm, in good shape. I take my vitamins and just try to make sure I take care of my body. But it's definitely a dangerous sport.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Yeah. I think gear has also changed a lot. Like, I now have like full knee braces that I wear before I go ride, and a chest protector and a fancy helmet and all that kind of stuff, and no more football pads.
Well, look at the boots. I had these funky lace-up boots that people used for horse riding, and they just laced up. And now the motocross boots and some of the I mean, even my gloves compared to the gloves that they have now. I mean, everything is so much better.
Yeah, but having all your gear, definitely. I forgot a chest protector one time, and I drove 4 hours to ride, and I didn't ride just simply because I'm too scared to risk it. So having your gear, I think, and good, decent gear really helps, because I won't ride without it either. But maybe that's why I only have a separated shoulder and you have like 17 bones.
Yeah, how and why. I mean, I had a gym teacher call Child Protective Services because I had raced at Silverdale, and there was all these rocks, and so I was like pelted, and I had all these bruises on my chest that you didn't see until you stripped down, ran in the shower, and ran out, and the PE teacher was, "What happened to you?" I was, "Nothing." Yeah. Needed a chest protector.
Any other questions? Jeff? Oh.
Hey, y'all. Me and my partner have done Moto America racing, and one of the things that me kind of coming in blind to it was how expensive it was. It's like really, really expensive to field the competitive Moto America team. I was just curious how each of your because you each do something different, like what is the cost like going to Spain? Like I'm just super curious what that cost you total, and same thing with what your racing was like so much longer ago, and especially, I'm sorry, I forgot your name. And with the e-bikes, you know, what does that cost me to get out? It seems like that's probably even cheaper and easier in a lot of ways than, you know, gas and oil. So anyway, that's my question. Thank you.
Well, I'll start. So this was 1973 is when I started the circuit, and I grew up very fortunate, and I didn't have any money on me. I had my dad's credit card. Serious.
Liv, how much did you go through?
Oh, probably around $30,000, $25,000 maybe, between flights and then entry fees and just all the I mean, I can't even remember all of them. Shipping my bike there, the parts.
People don't understand. She had to have extra sprockets, extra tires. I mean, the inventory list of everything that she needed that she took was incredible. And she had to buy a bike. She bought two, one to keep here to ride, one to send and prep for over there, so that she was used to that particular bike and would be able to perform and do well.
Yeah, and it's gone for 3 months. So once you ship it, if you don't have a second bike, you aren't riding for 3 months. So that wasn't really obviously an option. So I ended up buying two, and then basically they mark your wheel hubs and your motor and things like that, so you can't obviously change those out when you're there, but everything else like chains and sprockets and grips and handguards and plastic, I mean, the list just goes on and on and on, and so it just gets really expensive really quick. And thankfully I was able to fundraise a lot of it, and the moto community is so tight-knit and so helpful, and we fundraised a lot selling shirts like I mentioned earlier and things like that, and local bike shops totally helped me out and stuff like that. So it would have been so much more expensive if I wasn't in such a lucky place, I guess, with that kind of, expenses, just with the parts and everything that came with it. But then you have to add in the entry fee, and I think it was about $1,500. And then you have to add in the shipping fee, and that was another $1,000. So it's just like, it just adds up really quick, and then you gotta get yourself over there, and then you have to stay in a certain hotel with Team USA, and then you also have to have a supports team. So that was my parents and my brothers, and then they had to pay for flights to get over there, and then you have a rental car, and you know what I mean? It just really adds up, and so, it was very expensive, but it was very, very worth it, and I would 100% do it again, so.
Yeah, for BDRs, you don't need much money. We always say a BDR can be done on any budget and any bike. You can buy a used bike for $3,000 and camp all the way, you know, on your trip. So it's what you have in your pocket. You can definitely ride a BDR on that.
For me, I was working on commission. So really, the more money I made, the more I could spend on my motorcycle. I don't know how to say percentage-wise in regards to, okay, today a motorcycle would cost 15% of the average income. I don't know those numbers. I don't know those figures. I do know my first 250 TT bike was, the Yamaha was $795, which at that point in time, in 1969, was a lot of money. I also know when I went to court, they asked me how much money I had made the year before, because I was in school and I was working in a motorcycle shop, and I remember saying $8,600, which today is peanuts. Back then, stopped them short, because that was above average income. So it's, you know what I mean? I think an awful lot of it just depends upon what your goal and what your focus is. And racing and winning was all I really wanted to do. And so I worked my little tush off and I learned parts like a son of a gun and would talk to people and find out what motivated them and what they wanted in a motorcycle and then find the bike that fit those needs and sell it to them. I hope I answered your question.
Any more questions? Jerry?
Oh, I'm sorry. We have 2 more and then we'll get to Jerry. Sorry, thanks so much for talking tonight. It's honestly really inspiring seeing other women motorcycle, just doing, road riding and back road riding and racing, etc. Some of the other sports that I love to participate in are also ones where women are by far the minority. And I always struggle when I see young girls come out for like airport days or coming out on sailing lessons and such. What is that one piece of advice that you would give to some young girl that's interested in getting into motorcycle riding?
Find your passion and go for it. Try and, don't stop learning. Read everything you can read. Watch everybody that you can see so that you learn their technique and you figure out what makes them a good rider. What can I do better that I'm not doing now?
I would have to agree. I have a 19-year-old brother, so I kind of grew up riding with him and his friends. And so it was the same idea, kind of. I would just kind of watch what they were doing, and then I would go for it most of the time, and sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. But yeah, learning from people, I think, that are better than you, and like being able to soak it in a little bit and just kind of looking to see what they're doing differently than you is what really helped me. And my brother's friends also just making me do stuff that I probably wouldn't have done otherwise. Like, we're not helping you, so I had to figure it out. So, but other things like that, and just kind of paying attention and seeing, what they're doing differently and what you could be doing better. I was always definitely paid really close attention to that, but it's hard being the only girl and trying to figure out, where you're welcome and where you maybe aren't. And so I completely understand that aspect of it too. So, yeah, it's a little bit tricky, but just kind of being open to learning, I think.
Yeah, finding the community, having the drive. If you have that goal, nothing can stop you. There's, women can do anything that men can do, especially this time. Sometimes it's, for big trips like what we've done in South America, the biggest decision we made was putting the date on the calendar. From now on, everything was easy. Once you make that decision and put that date on the calendar, you can't stop. You just have to go through it.
Commitment.
Yeah.
I have a question for pretty much Debbi and Tammy both. Is once you're allowed into regular competition with the AMA in those first few years, could you summarize your first, say, 2 to 4 years of what you went through competitively finding your place?
Say that again? I didn't really understand those last.
Sorry. Once you're allowed into regular competition with the AMA, would you be able to summarize your first 2 to 4 years or so?
Sure. I think I understand what you're saying. One, I fell in love, so my first race was a national event, and it was in Philadelphia, and a promoter called me and asked me to go out. I wasn't nervous, I wasn't scared, I was excited at being able to do that. Most of the guys that raced professionally knew me because of being around for so long and stirring the pot and wanting to race against them. We had grown up, so they were okay. My second race was a national event in New York at Madison Square Gardens. And both races I qualified for the heat, which was a big deal because of the fact that it was a national event, and everybody was on 250. So all of your experts, your national numbers, your amateurs, your novices, we were all equal, we were all racing together. So I'm on the line looking at people that are national numbers, and here is my first or second race. But it didn't scare me or bother me, and the AMA just kind of like filtered off into the distance, so it didn't really make any difference. And my poor sweet husband was home and injured, had broken his shoulder, and I came home and told him, hey, I think I'm going to go race. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to travel. And he said, okay. And so then his mom kept asking me over for dinner, and I was working by myself, and if she made dinner, then I had more money for motorcycles and motorcycle parts. And so pretty soon I realized that I had to make a choice. I had to either dedicate my life and go racing motorcycles, or spend the rest of my life with the person that I loved and grow old with him, and that's what I chose. So I hope I answered your question, and I love my life. I have a wonderful husband, I have awesome kids, I have terrific grandkids. I mean, life, this is as good as it gets. It's great.
I can't say it any better. But for me, you have to start out on a motor no bigger than a 350 or 360, and you were called a novice. You had to get so many first, second, third, and fourth places in order to get your points to become, so you can ride with the big boys. And that would be on a 750. They were riding Harleys. I rode a Triumph. Yamahas were really popular. The competition was unbelievable. I don't really want to compare it to today because it's so much different. I would say back in 1973, there was 5,000 novice riders in the United States, and that is probably a very low number. Now it's the same 500 racers. That's how the sport is. That's the way it is. There's just not that many. But
Yeah,
the competition was just crazy. If you didn't, when you get to the 750 class, you have to time in all by yourself on that track, and you got to time in. If you just traveled 2,000 miles and if you didn't get a good enough time, you don't even get to ride. That's how many racers there were. The novice class, and then it went to junior, which is you riding with the big boys, and then you either become a national member or you are considered an expert. And there were 100 national members in the United States, plus thousands of other experts. But it was a lot of fun. I don't know, how's our time doing?
You actually answered the question I was going to ask.
Okay, sure.
Bob and I had a bet what kind of motorcycle you were riding in that photo. But I did want to say though, I saw you race in Castle Rock when I was 9 years old.
Oh no.
Kenny Roberts was there, and I remember there's Tammy Sessions. I don't remember the name at that time because I was only 9, but there was a girl out there racing, and I thought that was the coolest thing, you know, and that stuck with me. So, anyways, I just wanted to say that. But we were.
That's why I had the pink leathers. My mom never watched the start. Always would, but when she started watching, she wanted to pick me out right away, and she insisted on pink.
Well, I remember seeing the pink leathers out there, thinking that was just the coolest thing, you know, racing out there with, you know, Kenny Roberts and all those guys and everything. So that's really cool. But can you tell us a little bit about your bike, 750?
So there was a 750 Bonneville, the motor, I don't remember what it came out of. It was so it's the motor. And then the frame was a Wasco frame, and which was built to me. And all the measurements taken. So in the starting position, where your feet gonna be, it was all custom made. It was really a fun bike to race. Thank you, everybody. This has been great.
You got one last question. Thank you.